Hey everyone. So let's talk a little bit about myths of cosmic destruction. Most myths that involve destruction center around flood and fire. These are two very common themes, and these are two of the themes that we're going to look at today. So, flood myths. Pretty obvious, right? A flood comes and destroys everything. We're familiar with this in a lot of different cultures, this idea of flooding. Why are floods sent? Well, almost always floods are sent as some sort of punishment for mankind. And kind is noisy. We see Mesopotamian myths where mankind is noisy and the gods can't take it anymore. We see other myths where the god or gods see people not worshiping them properly or not living an upright kind of life, and they decide to end the world. And there are some myths that we just don't know. There's another Mesopotamian myth where the gods decide to destroy the world, but we don't know why. The myth sort of begins at the time where the god is angry, and we don't know what he is angry about. So a lot of this depends on the tradition of the story being handed down and what kind of text we might have available to us. But the why is almost invariably because humans are doing something that the gods find annoying. Annoying at the very least, sinful at the worst, right? And sent by whom? Almost again invariably by a god that is good. So floods are not generally sent by an evil demon of some sort. It's usually a god that is good, right? And usually they are letting somebody know that this is coming, right? Usually one being knows that this is going to happen and is given instructions on how to prepare. And this is fairly common all around the world. And we talked some in the office hours video about how these stories wind up so similar all around the world, how stories travel and migrate, and we gave various reasons for how those stories travel from one area to another, and we won't go into that here. So let's look at a couple of examples. The Hebrew myth is that Noah is told that a flood is coming, and he builds an ark and gathers family and animals and all these things that he's told to take with him. He's given the dimensions of the ark, and this is a particular medieval manuscript, and in the middle of the text here, the manuscript scribe, person who was writing it, gave us this little, looks kind of like a hazelnut shell or something, I don't know, but that was his depiction of what the book of Genesis was describing here. But this idea of saving particular individuals is fairly common, and giving instructions for how the vessel in which they are to escape is to be built is fairly common as well. So same thing happens in the Mesopotamian story that you learned about in Gilgamesh, the story that Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh. Utnapishtim finds out, is told that the world is going to be destroyed, and he's told pretty specifically how to build the ark, his vessel, what he's supposed to take with him, etc. So a very similar sort of story. A lot of close parallels, as you learned about in the video. In Hindu mythology, you have a character named Manu, and again, is told the world is going to be destroyed, and he's given information on how to build his boat, and he has this particular fish / avatar pulls them along, and you see a drowned demon there that has perished in the flood. And almost invariably, they wind up on a mountain somewhere, right? They fetch up on a mountain, and they have to wait for the waters to recede until mankind can be repopulated. So the flood stories are a punishment, but then the earth is repopulated. So kind of a creation myth as well, right? It's part of the creation cycle. And some cultures, their beliefs are more cyclical. So, for instance, in Hindu beliefs, we have different ages of the world, and we cycle through those ages. The world's destroyed, starts over again. And some are more linear. There's an end of the world, and if there are any people chosen to start again, it's a very different world. It's not the same world that it once was. So some cultures have these linear creation stories that end with the destruction story, and some are more cyclical, like the Hindu tradition. And this is what I was talking about a moment ago. In some cultures, it is the final story. In some, we have a couple of beings who are saved with specific information ahead of time how this is going to work. In some stories, like in the Ragnarok, the end of the world story told in Norse mythology, two people do survive by climbing up inside these trees, and they manage to hang on until the floodwaters recede and the fires recede, and they come back. So there has to be somebody left to repopulate the earth, whether the gods expected that to happen or not. The other major theme of destruction myths are fire myths. And again, as people in history saw floods wiping out populations and villages and destroying crops, you could see that happening with a wildfire as well, a fire sparked by lightning or by a volcano. Maybe a small village being wiped out when an earthquake caused candles to catch the huts on fire. You can think of a variety of scenarios where there might have been these horrific fires, and you can understand how it might be incorporated into an end-of-the-world scenario. But fire myths are usually seen as a type of purification. If people can come through the fire and make it to the other side, then they're purified and ready to live again in a new world. Right? We see these kind of themes over and over again in A New Beginning as well. So we see this in the New Testament book of Revelations, where a fire comes from the sky. Lots of destruction kind of going on in this particular book, but fire does come from the sky. And again, this is I want to say medieval tapestry. I'm forgetful of where I got that, but we also look like we have some drowning going on too, so maybe a combination of fire and water here. I spoke a moment ago of the cyclical view of history of the Hindu culture, and here we see Shiva, who is a particular deity. We may talk about him later in the semester, but he's dancing here in a ring of fire, and he dances the world into creation, and he can also dance it into destruction. So it's his movement that brings the world into existence, and his movement in this cosmic dance that can destroy it again. So that's where that fire motif comes in here as well. Some other fire stories, we mentioned the Norse story, the end of the world. There are Mesoamerican stories of fire being one of the ages of the world being destroyed by fire. And in the Zoroastrian culture, this is one of the Persian cultures, and there still are a small contingent of Zoroastrians left in the world, but fire is at the center of their worship as well. And in one of their end-of-the-world stories, I don't remember if it's a volcano overflowing, it might have been, and creating a river of fire through which people have to walk. And if they're pure of heart, of course, they will live, and if they're evil, they will be destroyed. So that's the end of our slideshow.